This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. Watch all the narratives as they continue to come out in regards to the school shooting event that occurred in Georgia. Because remember, really what I should start talking about more is that there's an agenda behind every single news story. It's not there to inform you, it's there to conform you. It's there to condition you. If we know that there's an end game that they have in mind, then we have to watch all these news stories because that's what transitions people into accepting the things that they want them to have in the first place, the way that they want them to live in the first place. That has to do with AI governance and also has to do with getting technology inside the body. And this story now about what happened in Georgia, the main topic is, well, what can we do? Because people are upset about the fact that cell phones weren't in some people's hands, that they weren't able to connect with their child in a school. This is a main concern for people. Lifeline or distraction. Should we have cell phones in schools or shouldn't we, right? So the debate has been that children are becoming dumber and dumber and more distracted, and their mental health has been getting worse and worse. So schools were talking about banning cell phones in school, which really makes no difference because everything they're learning in the institution anyway is nothing more than lies. And if you haven't noticed, since cell phones have come out, people have become dumber and dumber. And if you want to see something frightening, look at all of these students in these classrooms who are walking into school and putting their cell phones in what looks like almost like a personal locker for their cell phones. They have to lock their cell phones up. But of course, this is a problem for the elites. Even though they run the school system, they need to do some pushback with saying that, hey, inside the school system, kids aren't paying enough attention. Kids are getting dumber, so maybe we should take technology away. But they're never, ever going to talk about, should kids have cell phones in the first place? Should parents be providing their children with cell phones? That's the main thing people should be saying. But instead, these children are growing up on technology, which is what the globalists want, because the more inundated they are with tech, the easier it'll be to dupe them into getting this technology inside of their body. So let me show you what is airing on national news in regards to the debate over cell phones in schools, because of course, remember, these kids have to have cell phones because they got to be able to call their parents in case of an emergency. So we have to figure out a solution. And of course, we all know what that solution will be in the future, and they're getting you ready for that. Take a look.
When shots rang out in Winder, Georgia, Area Bowling called her mother Tabitha from inside the school.
It's scary, and I'm thankful that she did have her phone so that I could know that she was in this situation.
Increasingly, schools nationwide are putting limits on kids' cell phones. Tonight, the tragic school shooting has a lot of parents concerned about staying in touch. Carrie Rodriguez is president of the National Parents Union. What are you hearing from parents?
Deep frustration, deep fear, deep anxiety that they're not going to know what's happening with their child if an emergency arises. And frankly, if a child needs to reach out to a parent for help and support, they should be able to do so.
2,100 middle school students in Marietta, Georgia, have been locking their cell phones in pouches since last spring.
Where we wanted students to be focused and present and free from distractions in class.
Superintendent Dr. Grant Rivera says the decision came after extensive discussions with parents, teachers, and law enforcement about what to do in an emergency.
One of the dynamics they've shared with us is that we don't want students being distracted by cell phones while they are listening to the directives and commands of adults who've been trained on how to respond.
Dr. Rivera says, unlike some other schools, in Marietta, every classroom has a device to quickly unlock the pouches in the event of an emergency and when it's safe to do so. Tonight, parents and schools trying to strike a delicate balance between learning, safety, and being connected.
So when I say they're getting everybody ready for that, they're looking at the cell phone, they're saying, well, there's pros and cons to it, instead of saying there's just cons, because there's no pros to it. There's no pros at all to owning a phone. People had pretty good lifestyle for a long period of time before cell phones came out. In fact, the term mental health wasn't such a thing until social media was created and children were provided cell phones. But Remember, folks, you have to have a phone because if you don't have a phone, you can't get conditioned into an AI government, which is AI governance, and you can't get conditioned into getting the technology inside your body. They couldn't come to your door pre-cell phone and tell you to get tech inside of you, could they? They had to condition you first with this technology, give it to you for free, make it cheap and very easy to access cell phones, make the internet reasonably cheap, get everybody addicted on it, never mention the words about the internet being the most dangerous thing for humanity, being the most detrimental thing to humanity, talking about the internet as if it's good and it's providing people with answers to questions and it's helping people connect. That's the big term. You even heard it in that news clip, right? Connecting to people. Because remember, the internet of bodies is what it's about. Connecting people to the internet of bodies. So they can never talk about cell phones being unnecessary because they don't want you to wake up and realize that people would do perfectly fine without cell phones. The problem is that 99% of people are addicted to their technology. And if you actually look at the World Economic Forum, this ties into the infrastructure in schools. It's not just about getting surveillance inside the schools. It's also about changing the infrastructure inside of schools. And the future really looks like, what it looks like is what you just saw in 2020. Okay, there's going to be more and more at-home learning. The role of AI in education 4.0, AI education. They want to make sure that everything in all education is going to go through technology. They don't want human influence anymore when it comes to brainwashing these children. In fact, they know that technology and AI will serve a better purpose for them to brainwash them even deeper, and they don't have to they don't have to worry about human error. So we know that AI governance is coming. We know that they've been working people into the cell phone transition. That's really what it's about, the cell phone transition. Because after you see that national news clip, you scratch your head and you say, yeah, right. So should they have cells or should they not? Again, you don't say, how about nobody has cells? How about the kids don't need cells in the first place? They got to still keep the phone, but you got to figure out a way so the kids aren't distracted, right? So for the time being, we've got cubby lockers or whatever they want to call them for kids to put their phones in. But the future, what's the future, you're asking? The future is getting technology in your body. And everybody out there who says that it's crazy, they find it crazy because they can't process it. They cannot process what I'm saying. So they automatically are defensive against it. But if you listen to these people, if you listen to Klaus Schwab, if you listen to Yuval Harari, if you listen to people at the World Economic Forum like the CEO of Nokia, you hear them talking about how the next wave of phones are not going to be in your hands. They're going to be in your body. And then you start thinking to yourself about the Matrix and human beings turning into batteries and all these things that have been ignored, that have been right in front of our faces. And then you hear them right out of their own mouths talk about what they're trying to change and what the fourth industrial revolution is about. Isn't just changing the infrastructure, it's about changing you and who you are. It's about hacking human beings' genetic codes. They talk about this out in the open. And this is the transition. This is what you're hearing. This is what you can take from these stories about, well, you know, what should we do? Should we let our kids have phones in school or not? Well, remember, they create all these problems and they're leading you to the solution. The solution is getting you to accept tech in your body. And we're getting closer and closer and closer. But the more negatives they tie into the phone, the more positives they'll give you about the future of cell phones and how if a cell phone's inside of you, you don't have to worry about these different things because you're mixed with machine. Now you don't have to worry about machine stealing human jobs anymore because you're one with machine. You're man and machine. They're transitioning people into this, and they're telling us flat out, right in the open.
Matrix. Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
Future, you will have such a good digital twin that you'll be able to go into the metaverse, into a virtual reality world, turn a dial, pull a switch, feel around, and actually change it in the real plant?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is not far off. I mean, the physical and the digital worlds, they will grow together, and the result is exactly what you just said.
I wanted to ask when you all think we're going to move from this form factor to something that's on your face, glasses, and when computing's all on the edge.
All right, 50 seconds. Who wants to answer quickly?
I think it will go. It will. First of all, it will definitely happen. I was talking about 6G earlier, which is around 2030. I would say that by then, definitely the smartphone as we know it today will not anymore be the usual kind of the most common interface. Wow. Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
Stunned by the sudden rollout of Rook Unlimited's most fantastic device ever, the Smart Mark. Because the Smart Mark is more than just a phone. It's part of you. Use it as cash and even shoot video. Distribution points are all over the city. The Rook Unlimited Smart Mark is worth the wait.
The Smart Mark has brought order to my life.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
23% of the population has been given the Smart Mark, #1.
Time to test our system, Let's put our new recruits to work. Subtly.
We should find the Flex Fighters.
I ought to find the Flex Fighters.
We should find the Flex Fighters.
You call yourself a man of science. World order is our destiny. Submit to a Smart Mark and join the glorious victory of order over chaos.
People think Smart Marks are brand new Rook tech that will improve their lives.
But your chip makes it possible to control everyone in Charter City, whether they're marked or not.
The really big thing is hacking human beings. To hack human beings, you need a lot of biological knowledge, a lot of computing power, and especially a lot of data. If you have enough data about me and enough computing power and biological knowledge, you can hack my body, my brain, my life. You can reach a point when you know me better than I know myself. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. Free will, that's over.
That's over.
Over. Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. Yeah, I mean, everything is being digitalized. Everything is being monitored. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste, because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to. But in a crisis, you see, we have no chance.
One of the features of this fourth industrial revolution is that it doesn't change what we are doing, but it changes us.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, right. Just as an example, it's you who are changed. Yeah, and of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
Yeah. And offers certain kinds of possibilities that have to be careful about. You know, when you began to do that kind of gene editing, some people worry that you are changing what it means to be human.
That's the problem. Of course, the new industrial revolution offers us many opportunities, but it raises manifold questions on the ethical, but even legal implications. And we have to be prepared for it, and that's what we want to do in Davos next year. So this fourth industrial revolution is, it doesn't change what you are doing, it changes you. If you take genetic editing, right. Just as an example, it's you who are changed.
So while you see a story like this, and you talk about the cell phone debate, the debate is never going to go away because cell phones are never going to go away. And even people out there who say there shouldn't be cell phones in school, they're still giving their kids cell phones. And they think that it's weird if their kid doesn't have a phone. And of course, they've been trained through all of the fear tactics that the media and the government have put out there that, well, your kid needs a phone, right? Because there's true crimes at every corner. You don't want your kid to not have a phone. They got to have a phone. Something could happen to them. Instead of just the real solution, you get rid of the phones and you get your kids out of the school. That's the solution to the problem. Your kids aren't learning anything in these schools. You could go to a school for trade. You could learn from, let's say, a blacksmith. Or you can learn from, welders. You can learn from farmers. You can learn from these people, actual trades that would keep you alive. But they don't want you to know that because it's normal to go into the school. And if you don't go into the school, well, you're weird. You're looked at like the Amish, right? But guess who's not looking so weird nowadays? The Amish people are. And I get it. There's some Amish people out there who we could all look at and not agree with their doctrine or some things the way they live. We could all look at each other and say the same thing. There's things that I do you probably wouldn't agree with. There's things that you do that I probably wouldn't agree with, right? But we could overall say, when most of us were growing up pre-cell phones, we saw the Amish and we didn't understand what in the world they were hiding from. We're like, are they afraid of Nintendo? The propaganda wasn't as thick back then, so we were saying, are they afraid of the TV? We don't really understand what they could be afraid of, why they would live like that. And now it all makes sense. Now it all makes sense because we see Satan's army rising through technology. We see government control and government tyranny rising through technology, but the mainstream media will never say that, and the alt-right media certainly won't talk about the dangers of technology and how, as a human race, we would all be better off taking our kids out of the schools because all the curriculum is lies. The history they teach you is a lie. It's nothing more than an institution. You're sending your kid to an institution, right? And I'm not saying it judging anyone out there that does it because I was in the institution too. The majority of almost everybody, I'm sure, who's listening to my channel right now or has in the past went through the school system, probably like I did, always wondering what was wrong with the world that we lived in, but couldn't figure out what it was. I spent many a day praying, trying to figure it out, feeling lost, thinking to myself every day that this is all bullcrap, something is wrong. And then a light bulb goes off and your awakening occurs and you realize exactly what this system is. This is the Matrix. This is a simulated reality. And people don't understand what that means. It means your perception of all the stuff you see going on, they're making up. These events at these schools, they're carrying these out. They're acting them out, telling you some kid went rogue and did this. The government is staging this. It doesn't mean there's not victims. They're carrying these out, no different than a military operation. And they're doing it so that you come and you say what they want you to say, which is we need change. We need reform. These are all things that they already have in place that they're going to roll out to the public. But if they didn't create the chaos, they wouldn't be able to roll it out. And it's the same with the cell phone. They made people so dependent on it. The question, the notion of even having a kid with a phone now is a crazy notion, right? A kid has to have a phone. He's going off to school. What? Well, maybe you could put his phone in a cubby at school and they can learn all day, even though they're learning nothing and just being indoctrinated with lies. And then when the day's over, they can get their phone and they can indoctrinate with more lies because everything that the media pumps out on everything on social media is a lie, right? And all these social influencers are liars, all these ones that are promoted that these kids watch. And then when they find someone like me, what do? Well, they shut people like me down because they don't want their brains to wake up. They don't want a light bulb to go off. They don't want to peel the layer off the onion, so to speak. And suddenly a mass awakening occurs and they lose their stranglehold. They lose their grip. But that's really how this works. So like I said earlier, there's an agenda behind every single news story. And every single news story isn't news, it's conditioning. So they're now all talking about this. Oh, what should we do? There's a big problem here, they're saying. They're saying the problem is that kids are distracted with their phones in school. Okay. And the other problem is that the kids need their phones. They need their phones. Because if somebody comes into the school, how can a parent, they got to be able to get in touch with them, call mom under a desk, call 911. Oh, okay. Well, this probably will begin with wearable technology inside of the school, I'm sure. Because the technology is never going to be removed from the school. But the goal is to get the technology inside your body. It's to change you. That's what's going on right now. That's what the alt-right media doesn't talk about in regards to the outbreak that just occurred. They like to keep you stuck. They gatekeep for you. While you feel something's wrong, you go to these people and they say all this stuff that tickles your ears. And you're like, yes, it was fake. Yes, they made it up. And then you get stopped when it comes to real truth and learning because they keep you at a wall where they say, well, they did it because they tried to steal the election. They did it because of this. They did it with the election. Yeah, right. Boom, stuck in the left-right paradigm. These people don't come out of it. And then their awakening doesn't go any further than just common thoughts, which are something's wrong. This doesn't make sense. This isn't real. They want to get this in our bodies, but they don't go further and talk about how gene editing is changing human beings, how that's what the plan is. How these people that they make memes about, like I keep saying with Klaus Schwab, all we do is see memes of him saying eat sea bugs and everything else. And this, of course, it's true. That's what they want you to do. But it's not funny. There's nothing funny about eat sea bugs, but they're making it funny at this point. And they're not even talking about artificial intelligence governance. They're not talking about, nobody's talking about the technology aspect of this. And they're certainly not talking about the technology getting underneath your skin. They're talking about, hey, isn't this cool, this new tech? And all those people like Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, who are clearly gatekeepers, what they're doing is they're conditioning you into this technology, into the next wave of tech. Well, you don't even think anything of it. Well, they're just telling you that. And then 5 minutes later talking about how crazy Democrats are. And you just passively start going with it. Instead of saying, is this where the problem started? Did all this start with technology? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. With massive amounts of propaganda being able to be directed directly at these kids with all these celebrities who are just constantly pushing communist ideologies on these kids. And then they just grow up and they start thinking that that's the way that we should be. We should be in a communist society. They don't know what a communist society even is. They don't use the word communism. They use things like love and they use things like community. And all these kids are like, yeah, that's great. Taylor Swift's talking about love. You're a jerk, this guy on YouTube yelling and screaming. When all we're trying to do is wake them up to the truth, these people are misleading you. They're deceiving you, and they're about to enslave all of us. And it's all through technology. So that's where I see this headed. And of course, I just love the fact that these stories have popped up after this event occurred, just like I was talking about, right? We need more cameras and surveillance in school. We need more AI in school, World Economic Forum agenda, right? AI governance, AI in school, like I showed you in this video earlier, right? The shaping the future of learning, the role of AI in education 4.0, that report that they released back in April, which I covered. Then you start thinking to yourself, wow, then they're talking about getting inside my body and they're talking about, right? So since then, those are the stories that have come out, right? In addition to some others that I'll cover that have to do with online speech and being able to arrest people, but that's a different video that I'll cover that topic in. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you and your families as always.